The iPhone 6s has been around since 2015, and while it looks the same as the iPhone 6, it brought some key upgrades that have kept it relevant even on the latest version of iOS 13. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91Zach, and today we're talking about the iPhone 6s. How does it hold up, and is it still worth buying in 2020? To put it simply, yes, the iPhone 6s is somehow still worth buying. Not because it's the fastest device or because it has the best camera. This is a 2015 smartphone. It's not going to blow your mind. However, it might be worth it for you because the value is so darn good. It can be found for like $100 used or refurbished on eBay.com. The iPhone SE, which is basically the same phone but slightly smaller, can be found for as low as like $50. If you want to see a comparison between the two phones, I'll link it in the description below. For the most part, I don't recommend the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus, at least for most people. Why? Well, for one, it may not get iOS support past this September. Now, personally, I think it will. And if I had to guess, I'd say it'll get to the September of 2021. But there's no guarantee of this. Also, there's general problems with buying used, which a lot of people aren't going to want to deal with. Bad batteries, potentially, cosmetic damage. For most people, buying a phone new from a carrier makes more sense, and most carriers won't have the iPhone 6s brand new anymore. Some will, like I know Straight Talk does, but still, for most people, you probably want to look for a better phone. That said, if you're not most people and you want a phone simply for value and you don't mind buying used or refurbished, the iPhone 6s might just be for you. The 6s is completely worth the money. It's worth buying, it's just probably not the phone most people should buy. But if you have a limited price in mind, you can't really do much better than the 6s. I'll link in the description below my complete iPhone buying guide where I go over basically every iPhone. But for now, let's take a step back here and talk about the design of the iPhone 6s. The iPhone 6s has an aluminum body and comes in the colors silver, space gray, gold, and rose gold, which is the one I have here. The phone is relatively light and thin, although it is bulkier than the iPhone 6. However, this is a good thing because unlike the iPhone 6, this phone does not bend, at least without unnecessary force. The general design to me is a bit boring, but that's just me. I do think the iPhone 7 and 8 made the phone look better, but honestly, odds are you'll be slapping a case on this thing anyways, so it doesn't really matter. On the bottom of the phone, we have the lightning port, and you've got it, headphone jack. This is the best iPhone to still have a headphone jack, as the iPhone 7 got rid of it the next year. This might be a selling point for the iPhone 6s for some, maybe not for others, but regardless, it's nice to see it here. The iPhone 6s comes in two different size options, the regular 4.7-inch and the 5.5-inch 6s Plus. Practically speaking, the two phones are basically the same, with the only major difference being the size. The battery in the 6s Plus is better, and it does have optical image stabilization, but beyond that, they're the same phone. With the 7 Plus or 8 Plus, you are getting a better device over the smaller model, and that's really not as much the case here. So just get the phone that fits best in your hand. Ideally, you get the smaller 6s, I think, because it is cheaper and thus, for me at least, better value. But that display. Both phones have Retina displays, although the 6s Plus does have a slightly higher pixel density. Does that matter to you? Probably not. The 6s is fine, at least in my opinion. Again, get the phone that fits best in your hand if you're torn between the two, or just the 6s, because it's cheaper. Under that screen, we have the home button and second generation Touch ID. Touch ID here is really fast and works great. No complaints, it's one of my favorite things about the 6s. The 6s also has 3D Touch, a feature the newest iPhone 11 Pro has gotten rid of. Basically, the phone can tell how much pressure you're applying to the screen. Pushing harder can give you some more options. This used to be super useful, but unfortunately with iOS 13, a lot of its old functionality can be done with or without it. It is still cool, and I really miss it for the keyboard. You can hard press anywhere on the keyboard to access the cursor and move it around, whereas on a phone without 3D Touch, you have to hold the space bar. It's not a big deal, but it has been an annoyance for me since switching to the 11 Pro Max. Let's talk about the camera. One nice thing is that since I used this phone for about 6 months back in 2017, I have lots of photos to show off, so that's fun. On the rear, we have a 12 megapixel sensor that can shoot video in up to 4K at 30 frames per second. Here's some video here. It's not spectacular, but it's also not bad at all. The 4K is nice to have, and the 6s was a big jump over the iPhone 6 in terms of camera quality. I'll show some photos in a moment, but first let's talk about the selfie camera. It has 5 megapixels and up to 1080p video recording. This really isn't a great selfie. It's fine, it does the job, but newer iPhones do a lot better with this, especially the iPhone 11. But enough of that, now I'll put up some photos for you to judge for yourself.
So
yeah, the camera is fine. If you want to buy an iPhone for the camera, the iPhone 11 is really the phone to get. It has an ultra-wide camera, it can take really great selfies, it can take night photos, portrait shots. All across the board, the 11 is a big jump over what we've seen in the past few years. That said, the 6S for most people is going to be more than enough, and considering it's $100, it's pretty hard to argue with. Hardware-wise, the 6S and 6S Plus actually remain kind of impressive. We're looking at Apple's A9 chipset inside with 2 GB of RAM. This gives us pretty decent performance even with iOS 13. Basically, any game can run great, and basic apps like Instagram or Snapchat are also great. Honestly, this feels like a legit phone, if you have an okay battery. Battery life can be a bit rough, especially if you have the smaller 6S. You can check the battery health by going into Settings, Battery, Battery Health, and it'll tell you the maximum capacity. Anything in the low 80s is going to start feeling pretty rough, as the phone will automatically start slowing itself down so that it doesn't randomly shut down. You can turn off the slowdown, but then it'll get even worse battery life, and you'll probably have unexpected shutdowns. Overall, it's not a great situation if you have a bad battery, and luckily Apple's actually kind of fair with battery replacements, being only $50 US. That seems surprisingly reasonable, and so yeah, I would recommend getting a new battery if you need one. Overall though, the iPhone 6S is a great phone, and that goes for the 6S Plus as well. The 6S Plus does have better battery life, of course, just because the battery is bigger, but it still might need a battery replacement if the health isn't so good. Again, I actually used the iPhone 6S back in 2017, not this one here, and now my brother uses it, and it's doing really well for him. The battery life was rough, so we got it replaced last year, and no regrets there. It's doing much better for him, and it's a pretty legit phone, honestly. This is a totally usable, more than acceptable iPhone for $100. $100. One tank of gas almost cost me $100. Of course, I live near Vancouver where, you know, gas prices are through the roof constantly, but regardless, this is a cheap phone. To sum up, the iPhone 6S and 6S Plus are great phones and might be worth picking up if you're okay buying used or refurbished. Some carriers like Straight Talk do still have 6Ss in stock, and that's not terrible, although do you really want Straight Talk as your carrier? You know, that's up to you. There's some benefits to buying used, that's for sure, because it keeps you free to choose whatever carrier you want, but at the end of the day, this phone is ridiculously cheap. The 6S will likely get another year of support, ending around September 2021. That's my guess. It might only get to the end of this year, so that's a risk you have to keep in mind. But right now, it's running iOS 13 really, really well, and I have no complaints using it. This is a great phone for an even better price, so the iPhone 6S is absolutely worth buying if you think it fits your situation. Again, I'll link my 2020 iPhone buying guide in the description if you want to hear about other iPhones and compare them to this one. But with that, I think I'm pretty much done here. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful or interesting, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at 91_tech if you'd like to for some reason. And with that all being said, I'm Josh from 91tech, and I will see you all next time.